with this week, DC finally launched their DC Future State line in comic book shops across the country. We got titles like Wonder Woman and Action Comics. We got the next Superman, but more importantly, well, not more importantly, I guess the biggest highlight for this week's release was finally the reveal of Tim Fox as the next Batman. And so far, it's positive reviews out there, positive buzz. You just got the issue, man. What are your initial thoughts about this issue and what they're going for with this character and this turn of this Black Batman?
So this is literally minutes after I've read issue number one. I know that we did almost maybe a half an hour conversation on this. That probably our highest viewed video on the channel. Different opinions within the Facebook groups, but I'm like the anticipation for this was high, and we said some things on our initial thoughts that were from the heart, but none of that was meant to reflect on the quality or any of the expectations for this particular debut comic book series. But to answer your question, I like that the introduction to this new version of Gotham is there. I like the artwork for one. The artwork is
It's
very
dope.
refreshing. Oh man, it is. And like I like that the artwork isn't leaning too heavily into that film noir style that you expect when you read a Batman book. I feel like whenever the actual Bruce Wayne series within Future State comes out, you might see some more of that type of artwork. Like in comparison to Three Jokers that we talked about, there's definitely a more updated, modernized, colorful style when you look at it. It still feels
Yeah.
like Batman,
Hmm.
but the look of it, I feel like does more to your eyes. It's more attractive. You see more colors. You see more colorful backgrounds. Even with the way that the suit is animated, the shadows from the suit. You know it's Batman, but it feels different enough to where you're more interested in it and you want to keep seeing it. As far as issue number one goes, they did play it a little bit vague as far as who is who. I feel like the actual reveal might come a little bit later on, but I do like that when you see the character outside of the suit, it's focused on the actual family. You know what I mean? It's focused on the Fox family as opposed to anything else. They make references to
Yeah.
Bruce Wayne, but this feels wholly original as opposed to being in the shadow of Bruce Wayne. So I do like that for a start. There's some dialogue that I want to get into, but I want to kind of get your thoughts on this here as well. Like what is your first impression of this DC Future State issue number one Batman?
Well, for starters, in our last video, we talked about it. We were a little bit cynical, and for good reason. I mean, you always, as a comic book fan, you're always cautious about hype, and this will be world-changing events and things like that, and so forth. So, we were a little bit cynical and had our guard up about it coming forth. But I wouldn't say that everything is all good. Like this is the greatest thing ever. But I am
Mm-hmm.
impressed by this new book. I'm not gonna lie, I am impressed by it a lot. For Tim Fox's introduction, the art style is refreshing. It is a very colorful style for a Batman book, which is really that was really surprising for me. I like the colors, the color palette was good. Tim Fox, I mean, like you said, the way he's drawn the Batman when he's Batman is drawn slightly different. It is like usually it's like, oh come on, you've seen thousands of images of Batman before. Like how can
Mm-hmm.
they switch it up or make it look appealing when he dropped down on that car with the Litos, man, that shit was fucking dope, man.
Yeah.
The five panels there where he just dropped down on the car. They're looking at his ass and he jumps off the car. Like stuff like that's really dope, man, in my opinion. And for the state of Gotham, like I think this future state line. is going to benefit only a few characters. I don't think everyone's going to get a good push or a good look from this shit. I'm not going to lie. Not going to lie,
Yeah,
yo.
man.
This,
Yep.
because I
Mm.
bought the Superman book. That shit was, I'll be honest with you, it was kind of ass in my opinion. I mean, the art was cool, but the story made no damn sense. Metropolis as a police state because of technology, like get the fuck out of here. Like I wasn't buying that shit. We're one step away from being Gotham according to Superman, but Metropolis is a whole nother flair. You can't copy and paste that formula on Metropolis. Gotham makes sense. It makes a hell of a lot of sense in the sense of all the shit that city's been through. Yeah, you wear a mask, you're done. Shoot on sight. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like
Yeah. Yeah.
control. Yeah, like no games is being played anymore with that shit. That makes sense. I know it's kind of cliched to have it's a stereotypical dystopian future or with the police state, but the shit works for Gotham City. It really does. It
Mm-hmm.
fits it fine, and I'm really interested to see where all these characters are at because this is a little bit like of a Batman Beyond remix with all your main roster still being involved, still not in their prime, but still active and being a vigilante or being a villain. So I really dig the storyline of Gotham City and its future state, and I did like how they didn't tell you too much about Tim Fox, or they didn't tell you so much of like, oh, why is he Batman? Why would he pick Batman? Why
Mm-hmm.
isn't it Luke Fox, who's the perfect
Mm-hmm.
brother type? You know what I'm saying? I like that family dynamic. Why is the mother so supportive of the magistrate, which is the police force, security force of this new regime in Gotham? I like that it kept it simple so it wasn't just I'm in Bruce Wayne's shadow. I am the Dark Knight now, and I have
Yep.
to do these things like Bruce did. Otherwise, there's a lot of pressure on me. It was none of that bullshit. He was kind of just rocking it out, doing his own thing, kind of getting his feet wet with the whole Batman thing. So I really,
Right.
first impressions, I'm digging it, man. I'm definitely gonna be copping 2, 3, and 4 and see where the story unfolds and see where John really takes us. Cause so far, so good.
As we kind of get into this, I'm just gonna thumb through a couple things here, and I just want to get your thoughts on some of this here,
All
right?
right, man.
So he states in the first, like this first panel, where you see him dropping down on the thug in the alley with the cape open. Like this is a fire first panel, man. Like
Yeah.
with the colors, all you see, you know what I mean. You see the alley, you see the moonlight, and you see him dropping down on this thug in the alley. The more things change, the more they stay the same. Do you feel like, and I mean, I don't want to be reaching or anything like that, but okay, this is the first statement that you hear. These are the first inner thoughts of the internal monologue for this character. Do you feel like that line of dialogue is a reflection of the status quo of comic books in general? The more things change, the more they stay the same. Like, what is for you? How do you interpret that first line of dialogue from the new Batman?
That was a good line, man, because it can go multiple directions with that line, man. It can go like in real life, more things change, more things seem the same with the political atmosphere of this country or just world politics, how things happen in cycles. It could be in the comic book realm, yeah. It could be just the whole you know how it is. This is earth-shattering events, and then everything gets recited, rebooted, reset, reboot, in less than a year, and it's
Oh,
all over again. A restart button. I mean, we know that DC is restarting the whole thing with DC. I think Infinite Frontier after DC Death Metal. So it's almost like he's acknowledging acknowledging that in a meta kind of way. I mean, there could be more layers to that later on when we know more about the character. Because I'll be honest with you, man, like, judging from Tim Fox, we know the comic is made in a subtle way that, because of spoilers, the comic is shaped in the sense that you think it's Luke Fox. That's
mm-hmm.
Batman. You think it's
Right.
Luke Fox honestly, when I first read this shit, like it made sense. When I first heard about Tim Fox as Batman, who the fuck is Tim Fox? You know what I'm saying? Luke
Right.
has been groomed to be Batman. He was Batwing. He was underneath Bruce's, teachings. He was working with Bruce. He worked closer with his father. And to me, a funny observation. The first scene you see Tim Fox in the hospital with his sister. He's got a freaking hoodie on with like a leather jacket. He's got kind of the uncombed fro thing going on. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? Jean pants. Luke is like in a business casual suit, kind of Obama esque. And Tim is kind of the rough, rugged, and I would say like a little bit of a rough, rugged, and raw guy. You know what I'm saying? And judging from his history of and the dialogue of saying you've never been around, this man has appeared in like three comic books since the 1970s. Like Tim Fox has pretty much never been around the family, never been really into anything, and it kind of it kind of drew some parallels for me because to me Tim Fox is kind of the black sheep of the family. When
Mm-hmm.
I first see him, and after this interaction, I get this feeling like it's very relatable. He's Tim Fox is like that uncle who went to jail, who
Man.
works a blue collar job that your grandmother loves, but everyone's like, when he comes around at celebrations or gatherings, he kind of ruins the moment, kind of ruins the vibe. You know what I'm saying? Like he's that uncle who might get a one or two drinks and then here comes a fucking here comes a fight. Here it is. You know what I'm saying? Like that's what I get with Tim Fox. Like he's that cousin that comes around. You make sure your games is in the right place. You know?
Right. I see.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm digging that. I'm definitely tracking what you're saying here. It's like they're positioning him as that character who, at some point in time, he went off of the beaten path. At some point in time, he made himself an outcast from what everybody else in that family was. So that could even be more of a reason for him to become Batman or think that he needs to become Batman. Or that could also contribute to them not expecting him to be Batman.
Right, right, exactly. Because I mean, let's face it, he is the outsider. He is the outside looking in, and this could be a whole thing where, it could be a whole thing of him with redemption. It could be a whole thing of him trying to make a name for himself. And I don't know about you, man, but I kind of picked up like maybe a little bit of I mean, he seemed like he been to jail, or whatever. A little bit more of a like seemed more empathetic towards
Mm-hmm.
criminals. You know what I'm saying? The first page, he's trying to save homeboy with the mask, even though he's a rapist. He knows that the freaking magistrate's gonna kill him with the
Right.
mask on. He's like take your mask off. Like what's wrong with you? You're gonna die. Like they're gonna shoot you on sight. Even with the Bane Litos, you know what I'm saying? He's trying to save the two kids from getting into gangs and joining that gang violence because he probably's been a part of that shit himself. So,
Well, yeah,
we don't know.
some of that remains to be seen. I
Yeah,
do hope. I do hope. Okay, so let me back up for a second here.
yeah. Go ahead, man.
So Timothy Fox and Luke Fox. What is their relation to Lucius Fox?
They're both his sons. They're both sons
Okay,
of.
okay. So I hope that at some point they kind of delve more into their background and their history, maybe their relationship to the patriarch of their family. So, moving on, I want to get into another line of dialogue here.
Okay.
So, cutting it too close. I can't start mixing it up with the police. I don't know how the real Batman ever. Nah, check that. I am the real Batman. This is my city now, and I will protect it. So, how do you how do you feel about this character? Because I mean, in less than one panel, they've kind of already established that there is a little bit of insecurity, a little bit of unsureness about what this character can do, calling himself Batman, and then instantly he snaps out of it and reassures himself, "Nah, this is what I'm doing. I am Batman. I'm not just pretending to be Batman because Bruce Wayne isn't here. This is my shit now. Like nobody else is gonna tell me that it's not. The only person that can validate me as this hero or as this vigilante is myself. For all intents and purposes, it's still a secret identity. No one outside of that immediate circle knows that this is Batman. As far as the criminals are concerned, Batman has been the same guy for the last 20 years, right?
Right. Yeah.
So how like what's your thoughts on him acknowledging to himself that there has to be a difference between the real Batman and him? And then him telling himself, nah, I am the real Batman.
I think it was a good move. I think it was a solid. I think it was solid because sometimes in these storylines where you have someone like Sam Wilson taking the shield,
Mm-hmm.
it's a little bit of it's a little bit redundant every time. It's like I'm not sure if I'm worthy. I'm not sure if I'm really the Cap. There's some self doubt, and usually there's a whole journey to feel like, yeah, I am Captain America. Or even with Miles, there's a journey where it's like I'm not sure if I'm Spider Man. I'm not sure, if I'm up to par with Peter Parker. And then there's a journey of him basically accepting, like, yeah, I am Spider Man. I am. I think they just kind
Mm-hmm.
of cut that whole journey and said, nah, fuck that. Let's just, you know what I'm saying? Like, we're skipping
Right.
that. There is no journey to feel confident and reassure myself. Like, he snaps instantly out of that shit. And I think that was just a good writing technique. So we don't have to even go on that whole self doubt, being in the main guy's shadow kind of thing for too long. You know what I'm saying? Like, you kind of have to have it. He wonderfully, I think, got rid of that in one page instead of two
Right.
issues, three issues,
Yeah,
because
man.
you can go on and on that shit. And I'm glad he just snapped out of it. So that
Right.
was that
There's
was a good
no,
move.
yeah, there ain't no chaperoning any of this shit right here. There should be no confusion as to who the top guy or who the main focus of this particular story is. And I
Right.
really can appreciate that they didn't waste half of an issue explaining what happened for him to be able to get the suit. At some point, yes, of course, we're going to get an idea on how all of this is going to work out. We're going to get some insight as to what the relationship between Bruce Wayne and the Fox family and how Timothy ended up stepping into the role. All of that is going to end up getting revealed at some point. But I like that there's no internal flashback or, them showing Bruce Wayne dying and then telling him, no, you are Batman. And him saying, I'm like, you know what I'm saying? The typical comic
Yeah.
book shit where somebody says, I'm not ready for you to go. But then the guy who's on his way out says, no, it's your time. No, he's telling us as readers, this is my time right now. I'm telling you this. Nobody's going to tell me that I'm Batman. I am Batman. So he tells, and I like that, like you were saying before, this is another thing to point out. Not necessarily that he's empathetic towards some of these criminals, but doesn't seem like he's as quick to inflict pain on some of these criminals. Like, for example, I'm looking at this panel here. He saves a rival gang member from the Banelitos. The Banelitos are looking to try to pull a drive-by on one of the hype soldiers here, right? So I'm looking
Right.
at this here. He jumps in front of the bullet, or he stops them from shooting him. He tells the hype gang member, says, "You saved my life." His response is, "Yeah, now do something with it."
Yeah.
Do you think, in context of what we know about Bruce Wayne, is Bruce Wayne really likely to stop gang violence? Is that within his forte to stop violent criminals from carrying out actions with each other? Because I don't think so. I don't think you would see Bruce Wayne intervening on a drive-by between two rival gangs. I don't think that that's something he would do.
Maybe Batman the animated series version of him, but the main continuity, your main typical version of Batman, I don't really see him doing that. I don't see him going out his way. I can see him, yeah, getting the gang members after the in the aftermath, sure, cleaning up a little bit like the police would, but I don't really see him putting forth that effort into saving, a gang member from getting basically a drive-by done on them and saving their life like that. Especially with the line now, do something with it. Like I could see Bruce saving his life and then breaking his arm in the process. You know
Yep.
what I'm saying? Afterwards, or marking him and then moving on to stopping the other gang members. But I don't that those kind of words of wisdom you usually see with like he'll talk to Harley Quinn like that or whatever like that, or like a main villain or something, or like Mr. Freeze, some kind of sympathy for the wife or whatever, but not like some low level goon. How many LexCorp security guards he busted up who was trying to work overtime to pay rent and get some Christmas presents underneath their tree. How many of those guys he busted up to get to whatever he wanted or whatever. So I don't see that. I don't see Bruce doing that too. Not for
Hmm.
game members, no. For maybe established villains, for someone on his level or higher tier, maybe. But I don't see that coming from the street gang guy, especially someone like a Ben Affleck version of the
Oh
character. Like
yeah, like
that's not
word,
happening. That's not
word,
happening.
like that man, that motherfucker would have been on the rooftop watching them shoot it out, bro.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like he would have been up top.
Oh,
He would have been up top watching them shoot it out. So that's
right.
another thing. That's another thing that kind of separates this version of Batman from the other version of Batman. There is, I think, a disconnect with Bruce Wayne in terms of the way that he views criminals.
Yeah.
That's a different conversation.
Yeah.
That's a different conversation, but I have a very hard time imagining Bruce Wayne going out of his way to stop gang violence that doesn't necessarily affect taxpayers, that
Right.
doesn't affect innocent people. That's one of my favorite panels, or one of my favorite parts specifically of this issue number one. Let's see here. This is another one here. Two kids scared alone. I can already hear sirens getting closer. The peacekeepers will shoot them on sight unless I get to them first. So, the mission for this particular version of Batman, Timothy Fox, I don't know for sure if his mission is that vigilante vengeance type of justice that Bruce Wayne carries out. I don't even think I'm interested to know who his version of Alfred is. Does he have a bat cave? Does he have someone that's his eye in the sky? That's his eyes
Right.
that are in the back of his head? Does he have somebody there to be able to check him on some of the flaws that he might have? Is this a year one version of Batman? How long has he been doing this? But specifically, is he as a black male, is he using this cape and cowl to actually try to help people who look like him as opposed to carrying out vigilante justice? Because I know Batman wouldn't allow two kids to get gunned down by security police or anything like that. But it is an interesting type of contrast. It is refreshing to see Batman go out of his way to do that. So do you think this is the priority for this character? Is he going to lean towards more of community looking out for the people who are there, or do you think we might see that turn of him being more of that vigilante at some point?
I think so far they got him in his comfort zone, fighting crime in the hood or stopping
Mm-hmm.
gang violence or preventing lives lost due to circumstances, due to poverty, due to living in the slums. You know what I'm saying? So
Mm-hmm.
I do like this difference. I do like this difference. I'm not sure he's going to change later on. I can't see him going toe to toe with some super villains yet because
Right.
we've only had such a small taste of it. So it's very interesting to see where he's going to develop into and what makes him. We already seen some differences in what makes him different, but I mean, also, I mean, spoiler alert. I read some solicitations for some other issues. I
Uh-huh.
mean, Nightwing is still around, and
Holy
in
shit.
this comic, so we only see Tim Fox, but Nightwing will be around at some point. Nightwing's in the picture. Robin is in the picture. Catwoman is in the picture, and Tim is going to meet Nightwing in Nightwing's Future State series, and those two are going to go at it. So that's very interesting to me. See how he
Right.
fares up against Dick, and how will Dick respond to seeing someone that's not Bruce just take up the cape and cowl, be like, "Who the fuck are you, and who do you think you are to rock that shit?" Or he might be at a point in his life where he don't even really care about it like that anymore, and he's above and beyond it with his own Nightwing identity. But
Right.
those are very interesting dynamics to see how would they even accept this guy who's a total outsider, not
Mm-hmm.
groomed to be Batman, never worked underneath Bruce, like this basically a total stranger who has his cape and cowl like Asriel, you know what I'm saying, without the edge and the super battle armor and all of that shit. But it is very interesting to see, and then he will encounter Bruce in the future. He is going to encounter Bruce at some point. So that's going to be very interesting to see when all these when the Bat family gets involved again and gets active again, how are they going to take Tim, and how is Tim going to take to them? How is he going to stand up to these guys who have been training in martial arts for years? And I don't know his background. I don't know if he's, how well he is with the fisticuffs, and I don't know how well he is with his detective skills and all this and this and that, but he's got a
Right.
lot to prove. He's got a lot of
Right.
proof and a lot of respect to be earned, and I don't know how they're going to do it in 2 months with
Oh
4 or 5
man.
different titles.
Well,
Uh,
now that you mention that, it's interesting because I never would have thought of this. You didn't see him actually beat anybody up in this issue. You never seen him engage in actual, what I'm saying, physical altercation. Most of what he's doing here is just getting other people out of the way, kind of keeping them from harm. So that is a good point there. The next panel that I want to kind of point out here, this was really my favorite one here. I ain't gonna lie, because it just I'm not gonna say that I marked out for it. I think whoever it was that wrote this issue definitely they know what they was doing with this line here. So the good days, sometimes in Gotham, it feels like there's not many of them, but today was a good day. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah, man.
You know what I'm saying?
Today
Like,
was a
yeah,
good day, yo.
they knew what they was doing with that line there.
Yeah,
Like, they definitely knew what they were doing with that line. Today was a good day. You know what
day.
I'm saying? That's one of the greatest rap songs ever written. But yeah, like how you
Yeah,
feel about that particular line there? Because
that's
in this panel, you see him before. That's his inner monologue. But what he's telling these two kids here is, one of the kids asks if they're gonna get put in jail. He tells them, I'm turning you over to child services. What happens after that is up to you. Like, and the artwork on this is still pretty dope. But what are your thoughts on all of that right there?
I can't see Bruce saying some shit like that. I think with Bruce, with his tragic backstory and his training and how he views criminals and deception and how his interaction with people and humans in general, I can't see Bruce saying it was a good day, even though he saved people's lives. I could see him
Mm-hmm.
just like it's not like you know what I'm saying, like he's almost numb to all this shit. I mean, he is to the point like numb to all of this shit. You know what I'm saying? Like he didn't stop the Joker. He didn't stop the Penguin or Poison Ivy or Scarecrow. He just stopped a couple of criminals or a couple street cats' lives from being lost. He stopped lives being lost in a meaningless way. You know what I'm saying? Like so for him, it's a good day because he saved a few lives, and I think that's some really down to core basic heroism, man. You know what I'm saying? For him to do it in these areas, like for him to have the ability to do it, I think he really appreciates like today was a good day. You know what I'm saying? Like it was a good night out, like with the suit. Like I'm doing shit I'm not able to do before. This is like you said, it almost feels like a year one. I mean, we don't know how long he's been doing it, but it feels like it's still fresh. It's still like still feels like it's brand new to him. And it's like mission accomplished. I went out there tonight and I made a difference to a couple people's lives. I didn't save the whole city, but I saved a few people. And I mean, to me, that meant the world to me right then and there. And that to me, that meant like it was a good day. So
Yeah, man.
I don't think the
And
stakes got to be high for him like that. You know.
and I think that's not to not and I really do think that at its core, the essence of the character of Batman is to do that, right? Like at some
Right.
on some level, the best stories are always the ones where it's a little bit more self-contained. We talked about the three Jokers. That's not a story where he's trying to save the world. That's not a story where he's
Mm-hmm.
interacting with Darkseid trying to catch a fade. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's not a story where he's talking to Superman in a way that he shouldn't be. You know what I'm saying? Like there's a bro, there was a fucking. I'm trying to remember which one it was. It might have been All Star Batman. I could be misquoting here, but there's a story where Bruce Wayne, Batman, tried to swing on Superman and broke his hand. You know what I'm saying? So
Oh,
we're
yeah,
we're not
man.
we're not getting we're not necessarily dealing with a character who's in over his head and doing things that on a not necessarily a realistic level, but at least in terms of tiers, he's not he's in his lane. He's not doing too much. He's not trying to go over his ability. So
Right.
his skills as a detective, his skills as a combatant, all of those are things that we're interested to see based off of what we're seeing in these panels here. And they did a good job. You know, this isn't a long issue number one, but I kind of just wanted to highlight some of those parts of the dialogue just for the sake of highlighting the differences between what Bruce Wayne would do and what Timothy Fox would do. I have one more question for you in particular, right? So
All right, man.
these are two young children that are growing up in the streets, right?
Right.
We know Bruce Wayne would have saved them one way or the other. But
Mm-hmm.
if Bruce Wayne comes across two children who are about to throw their lives away, you know what I'm saying, getting caught up in the streets doing street shit, does he turn them over to Child Protective Services or does he take them back to the Bat Cave and, you know what I'm saying, become they or does he become the sensei? Does he become their sensei and try to make them Robin and Bluebird or Robin and Blue Jay?
Oh
You know what
man.
I'm saying?
More child soldiers. I like it. Dude, I mean, shit. With his track record, he like, I can use two Latino boys from my bat army. Sure. Bring them down to the bat cave.
And I think that's important. I think that that is very important because we know what Bruce Wayne would have did. They would have been at the crib, man. He would have brought them back to the Batcave, and they would have been sparring with Damian by the end of the week. By the end of the week, you know what I'm saying? Damian would have been pissed off that he would have to share Captain Crunch with these two kids that are off of the streets, man. You know
Man.
what I'm saying? He
Yep.
wouldn't even be calling him father. He would have been like Bruce. They didn't put the dishes in the dishwasher after they got breakfast this morning. You know what I'm
I
saying?
don't, man.
And
I don't
it's
know
like,
what other fucking superhero does this shit, man. I don't know. I mean, they used to do that shit back in the day. He the only one that like still does it to this day. But such a weird dynamic, man, of recruiting youngsters in this mental therapy, man. We talked about it before in one of the past episodes, man. But
uh-huh.
that is a difference, man. You know, Bruce, even if he didn't do it, thought what it came in his head like.
No,
He's got to pre-screen them now. You know.
yeah, these are the facts. And if this issue number one did anything, I do like that it established that this Batman has a different ideology. He has a different thought process as to what justice is and what his role is as a hero as opposed to being a vigilante. There has to be a separation, right?
Right.
There
Right.
has at some point with Bruce Wayne as Batman, hero and vigilante became the same thing. But there has to
Mm-hmm.
be some separation either due to the circumstances or just due to this being a different person to where the separation between vigilante and hero